Welcome home. I know your feet are weary after a long journey, and your mind has not yet ceased to echo the noise of the outside world. You have labored hard. Sit down here right beside this warm fire. Tonight, I do not merely seek to help you fall asleep, but I invite you to step into a journey of the deepest healing, perceiving the human mind through the eyes of Jesus. From the Sermon on the Mount to the glorious resurrection, we shall see that every pain and burden you carry is understood and comforted by Him. Remember His sacred promise, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Before we begin, please press like and subscribe to make this place a sanctuary for your soul every night. However, please only return to subscribe if you truly feel that this video helps you achieve a peaceful sleep. Along with that, please share your time and location in the comments below. Perhaps someone else is in the same situation as we are, and right now, leave a comment sharing what is troubling you the most, so that together we may lay it down before this fire. Take a deep breath. Feel the warmth spreading throughout your body. You are safe. Let us begin. In the infinite silence of the universe, before time was named and space was defined, there was a divine presence encompassing all. It was not a soulless void, but the fullness of life, the source of all peace that our souls still yearn to return to every time night falls. When you close your eyes, imagine yourself standing before a vast ocean of stillness, where every daily worry gradually fades away like mist. Precisely in that deepest depth of the beginning, the Bible opened up a great horizon of awareness, not only about the origin of the world, but also about the origin of your human value. The Gospel of John began with words full of authority and mystery, like a symphony of light rising amidst the night. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. The Word or Logos is reason, order, and the love that operates this universe. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means that your existence is not random. Amidst the chaos of life, amidst the pressures of work, and the burdens of livelihood that trouble your mind, there is still a divine order preserving you. You were born from the intention of love, and that word is still whispering in every beat of your heart, reminding you that you belong to something greater and more eternal than temporary anxieties. But that great love did not choose to appear in blazing glory or terrifying thunder to frighten humanity. He chose the path of ultimate humility, a path where perhaps you yourself, the weary traveler, will feel most comforted. Let your mind drift to the ancient land of Bethlehem, where the hills of Judea slept under a starry sky. There, in a shabby cave, a shelter for animals, the Creator chose to enter the human world in the form of a tiny, frail infant. Why a manger? Why poverty? That is the first message of healing. Jesus did not come in a palace reserved only for kings. He came in simplicity to tell you, you do not need to be perfect, nor wealthy, or powerful to be loved. Even if your soul feels shabby, cold, and lacking like that stone cave, He is still willing to dwell within. His birth is an affirmation that your value lies not in what you possess outwardly, but in the presence of God inside you. As the angel announced the great good news, glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom His favor rests. Luke 2:14. That peace is not a reward for effort, but grace for those willing to open their hearts to receive it. In this moment, visualize that birth not merely as a historical event over 2,000 years ago, but as taking place right within your consciousness. Let the Word become flesh in your very thoughts. Anxiety and fear often stem from a sense of abandonment, a feeling of having to fight the world alone. But the incarnation of Jesus shatters that loneliness. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He tasted the cold of the winter night so that you might be warmed. He accepted the confinement of the manger so that your soul might be opened wide. When you understand this great humility, the ego full of pride and hurt will be soothed. You no longer need to strain yourself to prove anything. You can lay down your heavy armor and return to being an innocent child, lying still in the arms of the good Father. Before the Savior appeared publicly, the call of John the Baptist rang out at the wilderness like a bell awakening the Spirit. Prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight paths for him. Matthew 3:3. Preparing the way here is not about leveling soil and rocks, but about smoothing the roughness in the mind. It is the lowering of mountains of pride, the filling of valleys of insecurity, and the straightening of the crooked paths of deceit. John the Baptist is a symbol of purification, of letting go of excess baggage before entering a new journey. To receive the peace of sleep, you also need a John the Baptist of your own, a moment of silence for repentance, to forgive yourself and others. Let the regrets and mistakes of yesterday drift away with the waters of the Jordan River, so your soul becomes clear, ready to receive the powerful yet gentle presence of Jesus. The combination of the sublime mystery of the Word and the simple closeness of the infant creates a solid foundation of faith. It tells you that the one who holds the universe is the very one cradling your sleep. His power is not used to oppress, but to serve and to love. As you drift into sleep tonight, carry with you the image of the Star of Bethlehem shining into the dark corners of your heart, and believe that the light has come into the world, and the darkness has not overcome it. And when the light of the Word has shone into the soul, clearing the desolate paths of the human heart's desert, we are led up to a higher mountain, where the air is fresh and the view is open, where Jesus is no longer an infant in a manger, but a high priest sitting down to proclaim a great manifesto for souls thirsting for healing. When the light of the Word has led us to the mountaintop, imagine yourself sitting down on the soft green grass of Galilee. The afternoon breeze blows gently, carrying the scent of wildflowers and the cool mist from the lake of Gennesaret. Here, in the open space between heaven and earth, Jesus begins to speak. His voice does not thunder like it did on Mount Sinai of old, but is gentle, soaking into the human heart like spring rain soaking into dry ground. This is the Sermon on the Mount, the constitution of the kingdom of heaven, a manifesto that completely reverses every value the world often imposes upon your shoulders, bringing absolute liberation to the soul. The world often tells you, happiness belongs to the strong, the wealthy, the winners, and those who are never allowed to be weak. Those voices have created an invisible pressure, causing you to race ceaselessly, making your sleep fitful for fear of being left behind. But listen to the healing paradox of the Lord. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:3. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Why is lack a blessing? Because only when you admit you are poor admitting you are weary, limited, and in need of help, can the cup of your soul be empty for God to fill with peace. You do not need to strain yourself to appear strong to be accepted by God. Your weakness is the very door for grace to enter. Relax your tense shoulders, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who know how to let go of the proud ego to rely on Him. Continuing the flow of love, Jesus offers a golden rule, simple yet great, capable of dissolving every complex conflict in social relationships, the source of so many restless nights. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Matthew 7:12. When you live with this mindset, you find simplicity. You no longer have to calculate gains and losses, no longer have to torment yourself over who is right or wrong. But the Lord goes even further, touching the deepest wound of the human heart, resentment. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 7:44. You might ask yourself, how can I love the one who hurt me? This teaching is not to force you to endure, but to set you free. Hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It corrodes your own sleep and peace. Loving enemies here is the act of cutting the chain that binds you to that person. When you pray for them, you entrust judgment to God, and you reclaim freedom for yourself. Tonight, try laying down the rock of resentment, even just a little, so your heart may be lightened and find rest. And then, like a great psychologist who understands the most chronic illness of modern humans' anxiety about the future, Jesus speaks words of soothing. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Matthew 6:34. We often lose sleep not because of today, but because of the terrible scenarios of tomorrow that have not yet happened. We fear lack, illness, and uncertain events. The Lord gently points us to look at the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. They do not sow or reap or spin, yet the Heavenly Father feeds and clothes them beautifully. How much more valuable you are than the sparrows. This teaching is a firm anchor for the drifting mind. It reminds you to live fully for the present moment, the only moment you truly possess. Tomorrow is in God's hands, and His hands are large enough to hold the entire universe, let alone your problems. Finally, to nurture this source of inner strength, Jesus invites us to step into a private, most sacred space. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Matthew 6:6. The secret place is not just a physical room, but the room of the soul. It is where you close the door to the noise, judgments, and demands of the outside world. In that absolute silence, there is no performance, no pretense, only you bare and truthful before the loving one. It is in that secrecy that restoration takes place. Sleep is a form of closing the door. When you close your eyes, believe that your Father, who sees what is done in secret, is there, guarding and rewarding you with perfect rest. Those teachings on the high mountain are like a cool stream washing away the dust of the world, reestablishing a new order in the mind, the order of trust and surrender. The constitution of the kingdom does not bind, it unbinds. It allows you to be yourself, to be weak, to be forgiven, and to be at peace about tomorrow. However, true peace is not an escape from reality, nor is it a state of immunity from trials. immediately after receiving the full power of the truth and establishing his identity. Jesus, and we as well, must face the harshest test. From the high mountain of revelation, the Spirit led him down, stepping into the arid wilderness where darkness and temptation were waiting to shake the faith that had just been established. From the mountaintop of gentle blessings, our journey takes an unexpected turn. For true peace to take root, it can not only exist in beautiful teachings, it must stand firm before the storms of the mind. And so, the Spirit led Jesus away from the crowd, away from admiration, to step into the absolute solitude of the wilderness. Visualize the Judean wilderness, stretches of white limestone, spreading under the scorching sun by day and the bone-chilling cold by night. No food, no water, no friends. That is the most accurate reflection of the dry periods in your life, times when you feel isolated, exhausted, and seemingly abandoned. Jesus was there for 40 days and 40 nights. The number 40 in the Bible symbolizes a process of complete purification and testing. He fasted. His body grew extremely weak, and precisely in that most fragile physical moment, the enemy of the soul, the tempter, appeared. The tempter did not appear in a monstrous form to scare, but he came as a whisper full of logic in the head, exactly like the negative thoughts that often attack you in the middle of the night. The first temptation struck at the need for survival and the fear of lack. Seeing the Lord famished, he said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Matthew 4:3. Listen closely to these words. It is not just about bread. It is the voice of doubt. If God truly loves you, why are you suffering like this? Take care of yourself. Use your power to satisfy your needs immediately. This is the voice urging us to sell our self-worth for immediate gain, or the anxiety that we will not survive without calculating schemes. But Jesus, though starving, calmly replied with a truth deeper than hunger. It is written, "Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Matthew 4:4. He reminds us that human life is not sustained only by material things. There is another source of nourishment more important, which is faith in God's provision. When you worry about tomorrow, remember this answer. Your soul needs the Word of God as much as your body needs bread. Failing at physical needs, the tempter shifted to attacking the ego and spiritual pride. He took him to the highest point of the temple and challenged, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down." Matthew 4:6. He even quoted scripture to trap him, saying angels would lift him up. This is the trap of testing God. Sometimes in the dark night, we also scream, "God, if you are real, perform a miracle right now. Prove it to me." We demand spectacular signs to satisfy our insecurity. But true faith does not demand proof. Faith is trusting even when not seeing. Jesus rejected that spectacular performance with an attitude of absolute reverence. It is also written, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." Matthew 4:7. He taught us a lesson in humility. Do not bargain with the Almighty, but trust in His plan. Finally, the tempter unleashed the strongest blow, power and control. He showed him all the glory of the world and set a condition. "All this I will give you, if you will bow down and worship me." Matthew 4:9. That is the shortcut. You can achieve everything you want: money, fame, success, if you accept compromise, accept bowing down to distorted values. How many nights have you lost sleep because of ambition? Because of wanting to control everything within your grasp? Jesus saw through the ephemerality of worldly glory. He knew that gaining the whole world while losing one's soul is of no use. With supreme authority, he commanded, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Matthew 10. The moment the word of God was raised with steadfastness, the darkness vanished. The devil had to retreat, and the Bible records a beautiful image to end this battle. Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him. Matthew 4:11. After the storm comes the silence. After the fierce battle of the mind comes the comfort of heaven. Jesus conquered the wilderness, not with swords and spears, but by clinging to the Father's promise. This story is the anchor for your sleep tonight. You are not alone in internal battles. Jesus walked through that extreme solitude to understand you. He conquered to tell you, the negative voices in your head are not the truth. You do not need to turn stones into bread. Do not need to jump off a cliff to prove yourself, and do not need to bow before worldly pressure. You just need to rely on Him. Let your mind rest after the day's mental struggles. The angels of peace are drawing near, ready to serve and soothe your soul, just as they did with Jesus long ago. And now, as Jesus has won the battle in the mind and affirmed his spiritual lordship, he leaves the wilderness filled with the power of the Spirit. It is time for that word and inner strength to be transformed into concrete action. Darkness has been repelled in thought, and now it will be expelled from the physical world through astonishing miracles. Jesus stepped out of the wilderness, not to return to a dazzling throne, but to walk into the midst of the mud-stained crowd. He carried the power of stillness into the eye of life's storm. If the word he preached on the mountain was the constitution of the soul, then the miracles he performed were the execution of that constitution, an execution filled with compassion. Let your imagination drift along with his footsteps to the windy shores and dusty villages, where weary people like you are waiting for a hope. Have you ever lain awake because of the fear of lack? Fear of not having enough money, not enough health, not enough time? Look at what Jesus did before a crowd of 5,000 people, fainting with hunger in a desolate place. The disciples with human logic panicked and wanted to dismiss the crowd. They looked at the limitation. Only 5 loaves and 2 fish. But Jesus looked at the fullness of the Father. He did not complain about the shortage. He took the smallest things, looked up to heaven, and gave thanks. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Matthew 14:19. The miracle happened from that gratitude. The bread multiplied beyond counting. Everyone was filled, and there were leftovers. This story whispers to your sleep, do not fear lack. Entrust the little you have left after a long day, a bit of fading strength, a bit of fragile faith into God's hands. He has the power to multiply peace within you, turning exhaustion into abundance. You will sleep well, for the one who feeds the birds of the air is preparing a feast for your tomorrow. But life is not just about hunger. It also has unexpected storms. Imagine you are on a small boat in the middle of the pitch-black Sea of Galilee. Huge waves cover the boat, the wind screams, and darkness encompasses all. That is the image of panic attacks. of events that crashed down, making you falter. While the disciples were in extreme terror, Jesus appeared, calmly walking on the rolling waves. He trampled upon the very thing that terrified them. He did not come to calm the storm immediately, but he came to calm the fear in their hearts first. Amidst the roar of nature, his voice, gentle yet full of authority, rang out, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Matthew 14:27. It is I. His presence is greater than the storm. Tonight, if your mind is rocking like a boat in a tempest, hear him say, "I am right here in this room, right beside your pillow." When you realize that presence, the waves in your heart will automatically be still. Jesus does not only master nature, he also understands mental suffering, the screams in the mind that no one hears. In the region of the Gerasenes, there was a man possessed by demons, living among the tombs, screaming and harming himself day and night. That is the extreme image of a mind tortured by thousands of negative thoughts, regrets, and torments, a legion of noises. The world shunned him, chained him, but Jesus came. He was not afraid of the darkness inside him. He ordered the chaos to leave and restored his sanity and peace. This miracle is a promise to you. No matter how troubled your mind is, no matter how powerful the obsessive thoughts are, God's power is strong enough to bring absolute stillness. And then, he touched humanity's greatest fear, death and despair. When Jairus, a father in utter agony, begged him to come and save his dying little daughter, bad news arrived. Your daughter is dead. All hope seemed extinguished. The sound of wailing rose up. But Jesus did not view death as the end. He viewed it as a temporary sleep. He stepped into that room of mourning, took the cold hand of the little girl and said, "Do not weep. She is not dead but asleep." Luke 8:52, and with the gentle call, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Mark 5:41, life returned. This story bears a profound symbolic meaning for your sleep tonight. Sleep is an image of short-term death, where we let go of all consciousness and control. But Jesus is the guardian of life. He has the power to awaken hope from the dead. You can safely close your eyes, entrusting your soul to him, because he holds the keys of life. The dreams that seem dead, the hopes that have faded, he can call them back to life at dawn. The miracles of Jesus are not magic tricks for entertainment. They are signs of love. He multiplied bread because he pitied the hungry crowd. He calmed the storm because he pitied the fearful disciples. He healed because he pitied the suffering people. Each miracle is God's embrace for suffering humanity. As you meditate on these things, let holy wonder fill your mind, pushing back worldly calculations. You are being protected by the one who walks on water. You are being nourished by the one who multiplies bread. You are being healed by the one who opens the eyes of the blind. However, the brighter the light, the more the darkness is revealed. The power and love of Jesus, instead of being welcomed by all, began to cause cracks in the old religious order. His teachings were no longer as gentle as a breeze, but began to become sharp, challenging hard hearts. And to face the arising opposition, Jesus chose a way of speaking full of hidden meaning, both to conceal the mystery from the proud and to open the truth to the humble. Parables. After the resounding miracles had shaken all of Galilee, Jesus seemed to want to bring the human mind back to a slower and deeper rhythm. He was not only the miracle worker, he was the greatest storyteller. He He understood that sometimes the naked truth is too dazzling, causing the weak eyes of our souls to squint. Therefore, he wrapped the truth in everyday stories, rustic images of the countryside, called parables. Imagine yourself sitting with him on a gentle hillside, looking down at the golden rice fields rippling in the afternoon breeze. Jesus begins to tell of a sower. Some seeds fell by the wayside, some on rocky ground, some among thorns, and some on good soil. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Luke 8:8. This story is not meant to judge what kind of soil you are, but is an invitation for you to plow the soil of your soul before sleeping. The worries, the calculations have choked your peace all day long. Tonight, uproot them. Let your heart become soft, loose soil, ready to receive the seeds of sleep and restoration that God is sowing. There is another beautiful parable about sleep that only Mark records. The kingdom of God is like a man scattering seed on the ground. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. Mark 4:27. This is a wonderful comfort. You do not need to stay awake to guard the growth of your life. Even when you sleep, God's grace is still working, still nurturing the good seeds within you to grow. Let go of control, for God is working in your sleep. He also told of the Good Samaritan, of the father waiting for the prodigal son to return. All revolve around one theme: unconditional love. You may feel like the traveler beaten and wounded by the roadside, or the child who has squandered all their life energy. It does not matter. Jesus is that Samaritan. He is bending down to anoint and bind up the wounds of your soul. He is the Father spreading his arms wide to welcome you home tonight, without a word of reproach, only soothing comfort. You are home. Rest now. However, the brighter the light, the more clearly the darkness reveals its form. Jesus' teachings on love and freedom became a thorn in the eyes of the Pharisees and teachers of the law, the representatives of rigid law and religious control. The conflict began to rise, not with swords and spears, but with a confrontation between mercy and rules. One Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and saw a man with a shriveled hand. According to strict Jewish law, healing on the Sabbath was a violation. They watched closely to see if he would heal him in order to accuse him. The atmosphere was as tense as a taut string. But Jesus did not back down. He looked at them, both angry at their hardness of heart and deeply grieved. To him, people were more important than rules. The true rest of the Sabbath is not doing nothing, but doing good and liberating the bound. He declared, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Mark 2:27. Then he told the sick man, "Stretch out your hand." And his hand was healed. This action is a powerful manifesto for you tonight. God defends you against all prejudices and harsh pressures. He is ready to break insensitive rules to bring healing to you. You were not created to serve work, achievements, or the expectations of others to the point of exhaustion. You were created to be loved and to rest. The confrontation reached its peak when the opposers questioned his origin. They called him demon-possessed, a blasphemer. Amidst those hateful jeers, Jesus stood there, calm and majestic, like a rock mountain. He did not argue with human logic, but he proclaimed his divine essence with the powerful words, "I am the very name of God. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." John 8:12. When darkness covers your bedroom, remember that the light of the world is there. Darkness cannot invade where his light is. And the most shocking statement, the statement that made the opposers pick up stones to throw at him, but is also the statement that anchors our souls to eternity. Very truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am. John 8:58. I am the self-existent one. He's not a figure of the past. He is the eternal present. He exists before all your pain, and he will remain after all your problems pass. His existence encompasses time, serving as the great cradle lulling your soul to sleep. As we close this leg of the journey, look back. We have gone from the humble manger through the teachings on the high mountain, conquering temptation in the wilderness, witnessing power over wind and waves, listening to soothing parables, and now standing firm beside the self-existent one amidst the storm of opposition. The night is late. The arguments of the Pharisees have receded far into the past. The noises of the world out there are also gradually fading. Only you and Jesus remain by this fire. He knows that the road ahead, Act 3 with the Last Supper and the Garden of Gethsemane, will still have many thorns and tears, but that is a story for another night. For now, look into his eyes full of love and power. Hear his whisper echoing from ages past. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the good shepherd. I have overcome the world. In the absolute protection of the I am, no fear can touch you. Take a deep breath and exhale every last burden. The peace of the Lord be with you. Sleep well, beloved traveler. Dear traveler, we have just passed through the great manifestos on the high mountain and witnessed the silent victory in the wilderness. Now, take a deep breath. Let your chest fill with the air of trust and gently exhale every lingering worry. Our story is shifting. Words have become action. Love is no longer an abstract concept. It has touched the flesh, the hungry bellies, and the hearts beating fast with fear. In the silence of this night, let the power of Jesus enter the most practical corners of your life. The worry about daily livelihood and the fear of unexpected events. Let your mind drift to a late afternoon by the Sea of Galilee. The sun is gradually setting behind the mountain ranges, dyeing the lake surface red. Yet on that desolate grassy plain, thousands of people still linger. They are men, women, and children who have followed Jesus all day long, passionately listening to his every word, forgetting hunger, forgetting the way home. But when darkness falls, the harsh reality appears. They are in a desolate place, and they have nothing to eat. The disciples, representing our logical and anxious thinking, begin to panic. They look at the empty purse, look at the massive crowd, and conclude, impossible. Philip, one of them, exclaimed in helplessness that even a year's wages would not be enough to buy bread for so many. Do you also often have that thought every time you lay your back on the bed? I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough ability. The obsession with scarcity is the greatest enemy of sleep. It makes you toss and turn, calculate, and fear tomorrow. But look at what Jesus does. He does not panic, nor does he blame the crowd for not preparing themselves. He sees a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. In human eyes, that is an insignificant number. But in God's hands, it is the seed of a miracle. He takes those small things, looks up to heaven. He does not complain about the lack. He gives thanks for what is present. The Bible records that sacred moment. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Matthew 14:19. The act of giving thanks before the miracle happens is the key to your sleep tonight. When you stop focusing on what you lack and start being grateful for what you have, even if it is just a breath, a roof, or a bit of remaining strength, you are opening the door for God's abundance to pour in. The bread was broken, and strangely, the more it was broken, the more there was. 4,000 people, then 5,000 people, all were filled, and the leftover fragments collected were more than the original amount. This tells you God's provision is never just enough to survive, but is always an abundance of grace. Do not carry financial worries into your sleep. Place your 5 loaves of anxiety into his hands and believe that the one who feeds thousands in the wilderness will also prepare fully for you tomorrow. Sleep well, for heaven's treasury never runs dry. But life does not only contain material worries, it also holds unexpected storms of emotions and circumstances. Immediately after the miracle of multiplying the bread, Jesus told the disciples to get into the boat to the other side, while he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Night fell, and a fierce storm broke out in the middle of the lake. Imagine yourself on that tiny boat. The wind screams, waves crash over the deck, and the boat rocks as if about to shatter. That is the image of panic attacks, or events that crash down, making your life lose control. You feel lonely, faltering amidst the cold waters of fate. The disciples were terrified to the extreme. They thought they would drown in this darkness. And then in the 4th watch of the night, the darkest time before dawn, they saw a figure walking on the sea. Fear piled upon fear. They thought it was a ghost. But cutting through the roar of the storm, a familiar voice, warm and full of authority, rang out, piercing the terror. "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Matthew 14:27. It is I. This phrase is not just a confirmation of identity, but an affirmation of divine presence. Jesus did not walk on the shore to call out. He walked upon the very waves that were threatening them. He trampled upon the chaos to come to them. This is a powerfully healing image for your mind. When you feel your life is sinking in a storm, God does not observe from afar. He is walking right upon your problem. He is higher than every fear, every work pressure, every family conflict you are bearing. Even when Peter, with a bold faith mixed with fear, asked to walk on the water with the Lord, he permitted it. But when Peter saw the strong wind, he was afraid and began to sink. Immediately, what did Jesus do? He did not stand there preaching a sermon on faith. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Matthew 14:31. He immediately reached out his hand to catch him. That hand is stronger than gravity, warmer than the cold seawater. Tonight, if you feel you are sinking in negative thoughts, know that that hand is gripping you tight. You will not sink. You are kept by the one who walks on water. When Jesus and Peter climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Peace returned to the lake surface and to the human heart. That is the peace I want you to feel right now. Not peace because there is no storm, but peace because you know God is in the boat with you. Imagine the boat of your mind drifting gently on the calm water. The waves of anxiety have been stilled. The needs of lack have been filled. You are enveloped in the absolute safety of the one who is powerful, yet full of love. The miracle of multiplying bread teaches us to let go of material burdens. The miracle of walking on water teaches us to let go of the fear of circumstances. When these two large rocks are removed from your chest, your breathing will become lighter, deeper. However, God's journey of healing does not stop at the external physical world. He knows there are darknesses that do not come from natural storms, but from deep internal wounds, invisible bondages, and eyes of the soul that do not see the light. And to liberate us completely, He continues to walk, heading straight into the darkest lands of human suffering. When the boat had docked in peace, and the hunger of the heart had been satisfied, Jesus did not stop at soothing physical needs. He knew that there are storms that do not blow from the open sea, but scream right within the human mind storms of torment, obsession, and disorientation. For you to have a complete sleep tonight, we need to invite Him into the darkest rooms of memory and thought, where sometimes you yourself are afraid to face alone. Let me lead you to the region of the Gerasenes. There in the cold and desolate tombs was a man obsessed by dark forces. The Bible describes him living apart from the community, screaming day and night and harming himself with stones. This is a painful yet truthful image of a deeply wounded mind. Have you ever, during sleepless nights, felt your head exploding with thousands of negative thoughts? Voices of regret, self-blame, anxiety, and fear competing to speak like an uncontrollable, chaotic crowd? When Jesus asked the name of the force disturbing him, the answer rang out hauntingly. "My name is Legion, for we are many." Mark 5:9. Legion. That is the symbol of overload. Perhaps tonight your legion is work pressure, unpaid bills, broken relationships, or nameless sorrows. They are too many, too loud, and they bind you in loneliness, making you feel like you are chained even while lying on a soft bed. But look at Jesus' reaction. He was not afraid of that chaos. He did not shun that man as the world had done. He stood there, majestic and full of compassion. With just one verdict, He commanded the chaos to leave. Darkness, no matter how aggressive, must bow before the power of light. And the most beautiful image is not when the demons were driven away, but the moment after. People saw that man sitting there dressed and in his right mind. Mark 5:15. Sitting still, dressed properly, and mentally sane. That is the state of restoration. Tonight, I want you to visualize Jesus standing before the legion of anxiety in your head and commanding, "Be silent and come out." Imagine the noise in your mind gradually subsiding, giving way to a holy stillness. You are returned the freedom to rest. You are clothed in peace and returned to your most whole and healthy self. After dispelling the darkness of chaos, Jesus continued His journey to resolve another darkness, blindness and uncertainty. In Jerusalem, He met a man blind from birth. This person had never seen the sunlight, never seen his parents' faces. He lived in an eternal night, just like when we feel stuck, unable to see the future, not knowing where tomorrow will lead. This blindness brings fear and a sense of helplessness. The disciples once again viewed the problem from a perspective of judgment. They asked, "Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" We also often torment ourselves like that. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Those circling why questions are the thieves of sleep. But Jesus gave a completely liberating answer. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. John 9:3. Let this statement sink deep into your heart. The difficulties, the dead ends, the darkness you are going through are not a punishment. They are the setting for God's glory and power to be revealed. God is writing a great story over your life, even if you do not yet see the next chapter. And the way God healed him was also truly special. He did not snap his fingers for the miracle to happen immediately. He spat on the ground, made mud, and anointed the blind man's eyes. This action reminds of creation. When God formed man from the dust, he was recreating his vision. Then he told him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam." The blind man had to grope in the dark with mud on his eyes to reach the pool. That is the journey of faith. Tonight, even if you have not seen the answer to your problem, God invites you to trust and obey. Wash your mind in the cool waters of surrender. When he obeyed, the miracle happened. He returned and exclaimed a simple yet earth-shattering truth. "One thing I do know. I was blind, but now I see." John 9:25. I was blind, but now I see. That is not just a restoration of vision. It is an awakening of hope. Jesus declared, "I am the light of the world." John 9:5. When you have him, you no longer walk in the darkness of uncertainty. He is a lamp to your feet and a light to your path. Your sleep tonight will be different. You no longer close your eyes with fear of the ghosts of the past or the fog of the future. You close your eyes with the conviction that God has silenced the noises in my head, and he is illuminating the path I walk. Even in sleep, his light still stands guard, dispelling every threatening darkness. The liberation of the mind from chaos and the enlightenment of vision from darkness are great miracles. But the power of Jesus does not stop at fixing what is broken. He accomplishes something even more unimaginable. He faces absolute lost death and turns it into a temporary sleep while using gentle stories to lull hearts. My dear friend, perhaps during those long nights of tossing and turning, you have at times felt that a part of your soul is gradually dying. It might be a hope that has flickered out, a dream that has shattered, or a relationship that has reached a dead end. The feeling of helplessness as you watch precious things slip from your grasp is as painful as the agony of Jairus, the synagogue leader of old. Imagine that father running to Jesus with all his desperation. His little daughter was dying. He disregarded his status and honor to beg for a miracle. But the trial seemed unbearable when the bad news arrived. Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? That statement was like a hammer blow nailing down the last hope. It is also the voice of cruel reality that often rings in our heads. It's too late. There is no way. It's over. But right when the world collapsed around that father, Jesus did not let him drown in despair. He turned, looked deep into his panicked eyes, and spoke a powerful word of reassurance. Don't be afraid. Just believe. Mark 5:36. In the moment between life and death, he did not demand a solution strategy. He only demanded an attitude, trust. Tonight, if you are facing a dead end, please hear him whisper, "Do not fear. Let me handle it." When he entered the house echoing with mournful wailing, Jesus did something that shook the consciousness. He redefined death. He said, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." Mark 5:39. To Jesus, death is not the end. It is merely a sleep. And if it is sleep, one can awaken. This statement carries infinite soothing power for your own sleep tonight. Every time you close your eyes, it is not a surrender into the void, but an entrustment into the hands of the one who preserves life. You can safely sleep, letting go of all conscious control, knowing that He has the power to awaken all life at the right time. He stepped to the bedside, took the little girl's cold hand. No elaborate rituals needed, just the touch of love. Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Mark 5:41. And life returned. The girl stood up and walked. This miracle is a promise to you. Nothing is too late with God. The dreams that have died, the joys that have extinguished in your heart, He can call them back to life. Sleep a truly sound sleep, and let His resurrection power work within your soul. After the earth-shaking moments of power, Jesus knew that the human soul needs to be nourished by gentle things that soak in gradually. He shifted from the role of an authoritative healer to a gentle storyteller. By the lake or on the hillside, He began to tell parables, everyday stories that contain the keys to peace. He told of the sower. There were seeds that fell on rocky ground and among thorns, but there were also seeds that fell on good soil. There is a detail in this parable, recorded by St. Mark, that is a wonderful sedative for those suffering from control addiction. The Lord likens the kingdom of heaven to a man who scatters seed and then goes to sleep. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. Mark 4:27. Listen closely to this. The seed sprouts even when the sower is sleeping. You do not need to stay awake all night worrying about your career or your children. You do not need to understand the full mechanism of life, though He does not know how. Your task is to sow faith and then go to sleep. God is the one who makes it grow. Growth happens in rest, not in anxiety. Then He told of the wheat and the weeds. An enemy sowed weeds into the wheat field. The servants wanted to pull up the weeds immediately, but the owner said, "Let both grow together until the harvest." Matthew 13:30. Sometimes before sleeping, you torment yourself because you see weeds still in your heart, bad thoughts, anger, flaws. You try to pull them out with self-blame, but the more you do, the more you hurt. The Lord's word advises you to be patient with yourself, to not try to be perfect tonight. Accept that in the garden of the soul there are still imperfections, and entrust that weeding to God in His harvest season. Live peacefully with the imperfections and allow yourself to rest. And how can we forget the story of the Good Samaritan? Tonight, put yourself in the place of the traveler, beaten and wounded by the roadside. You have been bruised by life, abandoned by others, and are lying there exhausted. Religion and laws, the priest and the Levite, passed by without helping your pain. But Jesus, the Good Samaritan of the soul, has come. He does not ask why you walk down that dangerous path. He only bends down. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Luke 10:34. Oil and wine. Oil to soothe the pain, wine to antisepticize the wound. Feel the coolness of the Holy Spirit's oil flowing over your heart's wounds right now. He bandages you, lifts you onto His donkey, and takes you to the inn, the place of rest. He has paid all the costs for your healing. You owe this life nothing more. He has paid on your behalf. Those parables flowed on, like a cool stream winding into every crack of the dry soul. Jesus used the image of a wedding banquet to speak of joy. used the image of 10 virgins to speak of the preparation of the heart. All paint a picture of a God who is close, understanding, and full of compassion. However, alas, the gentler the light, the more the dark corners of pride and hypocrisy feel threatened. The stories of God's unconditional love touched the venom of an old religious system where people valued rules more than humans, valued appearance more than the heart. And from here, the atmosphere began to change. The calmness of the stories told by the lake gradually gave way to the heat of an unavoidable confrontation, a battle to reclaim true freedom for humanity. Dear traveler, let your mind leave the lush green fields of the parables to step into a different space where the air is somewhat thicker, but also where the light of truth will shine most powerfully to break the chains. It is inside the majestic synagogues where law is revered more than love, and form is valued more than the heart. Have you ever felt exhausted from trying to please everyone? Have you ever felt like you are carrying dozens of invisible rules on your shoulders? Must be successful, must be strong, must not make mistakes. That is the burden of modern law. And today I want you to witness Jesus standing up to lift that burden off your frail shoulders. The story begins on a Sabbath, a sanctified day of rest. In the synagogue, there was a man with a withered hand. That hand, once a tool of labor, a means of connecting with the world, had now become helpless and withered. That is the image of the parts of your capacity that have been exhausted by the pressures of life. You want to work, want to contribute, but your soul has withered from fatigue. The Pharisees, representing the voice of harsh judgment, were watching closely to see if Jesus would heal on the day of rest in order to accuse him. The atmosphere was as tense as a taut string. They cared more about keeping the rules correctly than about human pain. But Jesus did not back down. He did not choose safety for himself. He chose healing for the suffering. He told the man, "Stand up in front of everyone." And then he turned to ask those who were scrutinizing him with a question that tore apart the hypocrisy. Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? Mark 3:4. Silence. No one dared to answer, for deep down they knew that laws were born to serve humans, not humans born to be slaves to laws. Jesus looked at them with eyes both angry at their hardness of heart and deeply grieved. Then he said, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." Mark 2:27. This statement is a manifesto of freedom for your sleep tonight. You do not need to be worthy to rest. Rest is not a reward after you have been perfect. It is a gift God grants you because you are human. He is standing before every work pressure, every societal judgment to tell you, you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to heal right now. When the man stretched out his hand and was healed, it was not just a physical restoration, but the victory of love over fear. Let that image soothe you. Jesus is ready to break every rigid rule of the world to protect the peace of your soul. However, the battle to protect the truth did not stop there. Jesus knew that human weariness comes not only from external laws, but also from internal hypocrisy, the effort to wear a mask to hide weakness. He had the most direct and fierce confrontation with the religious leadership. He called them hypocrites. It sounds heavy, but listen closely, and you will see this is a word of liberation. He said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. Matthew 23:27. Painted beautifully on the outside, inside full of death. This is a wake-up call for the performance lifestyle. We often lose sleep for fear that others will see the truth about us. We are afraid of exposing the cracks, the failures, the uncleanliness inside. How much energy do we spend to whitewash our lives on social media and relationships? When Jesus exposed this, he was not insulting humans, but he was smashing the masks. He meant to say, I know everything inside you, the dry bones, the decay. I know it all, and you do not need to hide anymore. And true healing only comes when we dare to live truthfully. You do not need to be a beautiful but lonely whitewashed tomb. You can be an imperfect but loved human being. Jesus would rather accept a tax collector beating his chest in repentance than a Pharisee proud of his holiness. His fierce rebuke of hypocrisy is actually an embrace for authenticity. Tonight, you can take off the heavy mask. You do not need to play the role of the successful, happy, or strong person before God. Just be you naked, weak, and in need of grace. God loves the real you, not that flashy shell. Feel the burden falling away. The chains of expectation must be perfect, must follow the rules correctly, are being broken by the stern yet loving words of the Lord. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Matthew 23:4. God sees the burdens that the world, or the harsh voices in your own head, is placing on your shoulders. He did not come to add religious burdens. He came to lift them off. Remember his gentle invitation, in total contrast to the heaviness of the Pharisees. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. The conflict in Jerusalem rose higher and higher. The lawkeepers felt threatened by the freedom the Lord brought. They began to plot. They began to throw stones. They began to interrogate his origin. Who are you to dare do these things? Who are you to dare forgive sins? Who are you to dare despise tradition? Those questions lead us to the pinnacle of revelation. For you to be able to close your eyes and sleep well in a hostile world, you need to know for sure who the one protecting you is. He is not just a moral teacher, not just a miracle worker. He is an eternal being. And now, amidst the siege of opposition, Jesus prepares to utter the most earth-shattering declaration in history. A declaration that will become the firmest anchor for your soul. Dear friend, our journey tonight has traveled from the gentle shores of Galilee to the very center of the storm in Jerusalem. The atmosphere now no longer holds the scent of the lilies of the field or the salty taste of the sea, but is filled with the tension of a battle of wits. The darkness of opposition is rising, encircling the light. But precisely in that moment of the tightest siege, Jesus did not choose to flee or offer weak justifications. He chose to stand tall, look straight into the darkness, and proclaim his true identity, an identity that brings absolute assurance to your sleep. Imagine yourself standing in the temple courts, amidst a buzzing crowd. The Pharisees and teachers of the law, with anger because their power was threatened, unleashed the heaviest accusations. They said he was demon-possessed. They said he was a deceiver. They questioned his parents, his origin. That is the image of this world, when it attacks your value. Have you ever, in the quiet late night, been attacked by voices doubting yourself? You are nobody. You have no value. Your past is full of stains. Those voices try to define you by your failures, your background, or your old mistakes. But look at how Jesus faced that condemnation. He did not let human judgments shape him. He knew where he came from and where he was going. Amidst the jeers, his voice rang out, deep and steadfast, cutting through the chaos with a blinding truth. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 8:12. Let this declaration envelop your bedroom. I am the light. He does not say, I have light, or I bring light, but he is the light. When you turn off the lamp tonight, physical darkness may cover the room, but no force can extinguish the light present in your soul. His presence is the guarantee that you will never go astray, no matter how foggy tomorrow may be. You do not walk alone. You walk following the light. The confrontation grew increasingly fierce as the Jews twisted his words. Where is your father? They were looking for an earthly father to demean him, but Jesus took them to a more eternal vision. He spoke of an intimate connection with the Heavenly Father, a connection no one can sever. And then he used the most gentle image to contrast with their aggression, the image of the shepherd. While the religious leaders were like thieves and robbers, waiting only to kill and destroy faith, Jesus declared, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. John 10:11. This is an emotional anchor for you. Amidst a world full of calculation and hostility, there is one ready to die to protect your peace. You are his sheep. Tonight, the Good Shepherd is awake to watch over your sleep. He knows your name. He hears your sigh, and his rod and staff will comfort you. But the peak of the shock had not yet arrived. The opposers, in extreme fury, brought up the patriarch Abraham, their national pride, to challenge him. They asked, You are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? They used time, history, and human logic to limit him. And here, time seemed to stand still. Jesus looked at them, his gaze piercing through thousands of years of history, penetrating to the very source of the universe. He uttered the most powerful declaration, a statement that made both heaven and hell tremble. Very truly, I tell you, before Abraham was born, I am. John 8:58. I am. This is not just a grammatical error. This is the name of God, the self-existent one who appeared to Moses in the burning bush of old. Jesus was tearing apart the veil of humanity to reveal the brilliant divinity within. What does this statement mean for your sleep? It means Jesus is greater than time. He existed before your problem was born, and he will still exist after your problem has passed. He is the immutable constant amidst the variables of life. When you worry about the past, he is there before Abraham was. When you worry about the future, he is there. He encompasses your entire timeline. You can safely let go of control because you are in the hands of the Eternal One. The opposers picked up stones to throw at him because they could not bear the weight of this truth. But the Bible records, Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. John 8:59. He calmly walked through their midst. No one can harm him when his time has not yet come. That supernatural protection is also for you. Our Act 2 closes here, amidst the resounding aftershock of the I am declaration. Jesus has proven his power through miracles, taught through parables, defended your right to rest against the law, and finally, affirmed He is the Eternal One. The darkness outside may still be screaming. The Pharisees may still be plotting. But in this inner room, you are safe. You are in the presence of the I Am. The journey ahead, Act 3, will take us into more sacred and secret hours, the Last Supper and the Garden of Gethsemane. But that is a story for tomorrow. For now, let the majesty of the self-existent One become a warm blanket covering your soul. No storm is greater than Him. No fear can touch Him. And because you are in Him, you are at peace. Sleep now, O beloved one. The light is keeping watch for you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. John 14:27. Dear traveler, leave behind the noises of the Jerusalem market, the heated debates at the temple, and the jostling crowds. Tonight, Jesus wants to invite you privately into a completely different space, a place of stillness, intimacy, and absolute safety. That is the upper room. Imagine yourself stepping up the cool stone stairs, gently pushing the wooden door, and entering a cozy room. The soft yellow light of oil lamps is dancing in the walls. The aroma of baked bread and wine wafts in the air. Outside, night is falling, signaling the coming storms of history. But inside here, time seems to stand still. This is the quiet interval before the storm, where Jesus spends the final moments with those He loves most. And tonight, He wants to reserve this moment for you too. The Bible opens this section with a sentence heartbreakingly beautiful, like an eternal pledge for your sleep. Having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end. John 13:1. Let the phrase "to the end" sink into your mind. Human love often has limits, often stopping when facing difficulty, betrayal, or disappointment. But Jesus' love is an infinite straight line. He knew well what was about to happen. Betrayal, the scourge, the cross. But that did not make Him step back, nor did it make Him love less. Tonight, even if you feel unworthy, even if you have made many mistakes during the day, believe that there is one who is still loving you to the end. Nothing can stop Him from protecting your sleep. In that silent space, a shocking event occurred. When everyone was seated, Jesus, their Lord and teacher, quietly stood up. He took off His outer garment, a symbol of laying aside glory, wrapped a towel around His waist, poured water into a basin, and began to wash the feet of each disciple. Hear the sound of water trickling into the copper basin. Feel the coolness of the water touching feet that are dusty and weary after a long journey. In Jewish culture, foot washing was the job of the lowliest slave. But here, the one holding the power of the universe is kneeling down, cherishing the soiled feet of humans. Peter, with extreme confusion, exclaimed, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" He refused because he felt unworthy. But Jesus replied gently yet firmly, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." John 13:she. How profound this word is for your sleep tonight. Sometimes we are afraid to come to God because we feel dirty from negative thoughts, worldly calculations, the dust of the road of the world clinging to the soul. We think we must clean ourselves before daring to pray. But God says, "No, let me do that. Give me your soiled feet." God's cleansing is not an accusation, but an act of care. He wants to wash away the anxieties clinging to your heels, the regrets weighing down your steps. He wants you to step into bed with a clean, light, and serene soul. Visualize God's gentle hand soothing the calluses in your soul, the stream of grace washing away all the dust of yesterday. You are allowed to be passive, allowed to be weak to be served by him. And then when it came to Judas, the one about to betray him, Jesus still washed his feet. He cherished the feet of the one who would lift his heel against him. That is the pinnacle of tolerance. If God can wash the feet of a traitor, is there any sin of yours that he cannot forgive? Is there any burden of yours that he refuses to carry? His forgiveness precedes even our repentance. This liberates you from torment. Don't carry mistakes into bed. Leave them in Jesus' basin of water. After completing that humble ritual, he put his clothes back on and sat down. He taught them a lesson on service. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. John 13:14. This lesson is not just moral, but the secret of peace. Many times we lose sleep because of fighting for position, for fear of being looked down upon, because of an ego too large. The Lord invites us to lay down that ego. Happiness lies not in being served by others, but in the freedom to love and humble oneself. When you no longer have the pressure to maintain a high image, you will find your heart lightened. A humble soul is the softest pillow for sleep. The atmosphere in the upper room at this moment is truly sacred. The scent of water, of linen, and the warmth of brotherhood spread. The feet were clean. The souls were somewhat soothed. Jesus looked at the disciples with infinite affection. He knew that in just a moment, bread and wine would be broken, and along with that, heartbreaking prophecies of separation. But before the storm hit, he wanted to ensure that they were washed, loved, and prepared. You too. Before we go further into the deeper part of tonight, believe that you have had your feet washed. May A, you are clean in God's eyes. You are loved unconditionally, not because you are perfect, but because you belong to Him. Now, as the soul has been purified, let us sit together at the banquet table. Jesus takes the bread, and an eternal new covenant is about to be established right amidst the darkness of betrayal creeping in. When the feet were cleansed of the road's dust and the souls had settled, Jesus and the disciples sat together around the banquet table. Flickering candlelight illuminated familiar faces, but within Jesus, a deep sadness began to rise. He knew that darkness was not only out there, but creeping right inside this room, right within the hearts of those he called friends. In the midst of the meal, he spoke, his voice not carrying resentment, but heavy with gravity. Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. Matthew 26:21. That statement fell like a stone, shattering the artificial peace. The disciples looked at one another, bewildered and afraid. And then a question rang out, repeated from the mouth of each person. Surely you don't mean me, Lord. Matthew 26:22. This is the voice of deep insecurity within each of us. In sleepless nights, we often question ourselves. Am I good enough? Will I disappoint God? The fear of being a failure, a betrayer of trust, always lies in wait to attack sleep. Jesus knew well who the traitor was. It was Judas. But look at how he treated him in those final moments. He did not expose him before the crowd to be humiliated. He dipped a piece of bread and gave it to him, a gesture of friendship and respect in Jewish culture. Even when facing an enemy, God still offers the opportunity of love. Then he whispered to Judas, "What you are about to do, do quickly." John 13:27. Judas took the bread and went out. The Bible records a concise yet haunting sentence. And it was night. John 13:30. Darkness had separated from light. Judas walked into the black night of despair. But in this room, the light remained with the rest. Tonight, if you feel you have made mistakes or have turned your back on God, do not walk into the darkness like Judas. Stay in the banquet room. God does not chase you away. He only wants to separate sin from you, so you may be at peace. When the darkness had left, the atmosphere in the room became lighter and more sacred than ever. Jesus took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to the disciples. This act of breaking carries an ultimate healing meaning. Take and eat. This is my body, Luke 26:26. He accepted letting his body be broken, crushed, so that we might become whole. Your healing comes from his sacrifice. Whenever you feel your soul shattered by life's pressures, remember that God was broken to fill those cracks. You are invited to eat this strength-swallowing trust whole into your heart to nourish your sleep. Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and gave it to them. Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Matthew 26:27-28. This is the softest pillow you can lay your head on tonight. The blood of the covenant was poured out to wipe away every verdict against you. You no longer need to carry the torments and regrets of the past into your sleep. Every debt has been settled fairly at this table. This covenant is not based on your perfection, but on his eternal blood. It is immutable. Drink in this peace and let it flow through your veins, soothing every nervous tension. But Jesus is a realist. He knew that despite partaking in the Holy Communion, human weakness remained. He looked at Peter, the most zealous disciple, who had just boldly declared he would die with him, and he smiled sadly. He said, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." Luke 22:31-32. He did not say, "I have prayed that you will not stumble." He knew Peter would fall. He said, "I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me." Luke 22:34. Dear friend, this is a strange yet profound comfort. God foreknows your failure. He knows that tomorrow you might get angry again, be weak again, make mistakes again. But he still loves you and prays for you right now. God's acceptance precedes even our stumbling. You do not need to promise, "I will never sin again," to sleep well. You just need to know that, even if I fall, God has prayed for me, and he will wait for my return. Your safety lies not in your willpower, but in the intercession of Jesus. The banquet was over. The heartfelt words had been spoken. Jesus and the disciples sang a hymn and went out. They left the warmth of the room to step into the cold night of Nisan, heading towards the Mount of Olives. There was a garden called Gethsemane, the oil press. And tonight, not olives, but the heart of the Son of God would be crushed to pour out the greatest healing oil for humanity. Put on an extra cloak, traveler, for the night dew is falling, and we are about to step into the deepest place of pain, but also the place closest to the Father's heart. Dear traveler, wrap your cloak tightly around you, for the bone-chilling night, dew is settling upon the Kidron Valley. We are entering an ancient garden named Gethsemane. In Hebrew, Gethsemane means oil press. That name is not coincidental. To obtain the golden drops of olive oil that heal wounds and give light, the olive fruit must withstand terrible crushing pressure. And tonight, right in this place, the soul of Jesus will also be pressed to the very end to extract peace for your sleep. Darkness covers the ancient, twisted tree canopies. Jesus tells the disciples to sit and wait while he goes deeper into the garden. Solitude begins to invade. This is the dark night of the soul that perhaps you too have tasted the feeling of being separated from the world, left alone with screaming anxieties. The Bible describes Jesus beginning to feel sorrowful and troubled. He exclaimed to his 3 closest disciples, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Matthew 26:38. Do you hear the nakedness in that confession? Jesus does not wear a mask of fake strength. He admits he is in pain. He is exhausted. This validates your pain. If tonight you feel sad, worried, or afraid, do not blame yourself for being weak. Even Jesus felt that way, so you are fully allowed to feel that way. He is sitting there, right beside your sorrow, understanding it better than anyone. But what does Jesus do with that pain? He does not bury it, nor does he run away. He falls to the ground and prays. He calls God Abba, Father. Mark 14:36, a call as affectionate and close as that of a child. In the storm, he still clings to the father-child relationship. And then he sees the cup. It is not just physical death, but the burden of all human sin, the wrath of judgment, and the terrible separation from the Father. Terror strikes, causing him to utter a prayer full of humanity. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." Matthew 26:39. This is the cry of the survival instinct. Your cry in the utmost dead ends. "God, I can't take it anymore. Please change this situation." Jesus does not pretend that suffering is pleasant. He wrestles with it. The mental anguish reaches its peak. Dr. Luke records a shocking medical detail. "And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground." Luke 22:44. Sweat became drops of blood. This phenomenon, hematidrosis, only occurs when a human is under extreme stress, causing capillaries to burst. Why do I tell you this detail before sleep? To tell you that Jesus understands what anxiety to the point of physical exhaustion is. He bore that extreme stress so that tonight you do not have to bear it alone. His blood fell to the ground so that peace might sprout in your heart. However, the battle at Gethsemane does not end in panic, but ends in the peace of surrender. After pouring out his heart, Jesus utters the greatest prayer in history, the master key to opening the door of sleep. "Yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew 26:39. This is the pinnacle of liberation. Insomnia often comes from our trying to control the outcome, trying to force tomorrow to go our way. But when you say, "as you will," you're letting go of the steering wheel. You accept that the Father has a better plan, even if you do not fully understand it yet. This surrender is not defeat, it is victory. The moment Jesus spoke these words, an angel came and strengthened him. Peace will come the moment you stop resisting and start trusting. Amidst that fierce spiritual battle, Jesus returned to find the disciples, hoping to find some comfort from friends. But they were sleeping. They could not stay awake even for 1 hour. Disappointment and loneliness rose even higher. But listen to his words to them, not a harsh scolding, but an understanding, full of tolerance. "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Matthew 26:41. He knows you want to pray, want to be strong, but your body is too tired. He does not blame you. He looks at human limitations with eyes of compassion. He stayed awake on your behalf, prayed on behalf of your weakness. Therefore, you can safely sleep, for the keeper of your soul never sleeps. Now, in the quiet garden, Jesus stands up. His face no longer holds the look of panic. The bloody sweat has dried, giving way to an extraordinary steadfastness. He has drunk the bitter cup in spirit, so now he is ready to face it in reality. He conquered fear in prayer. He wakes the disciples. Look, the hour has come. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. Matthew 26:45-46. Majestic calm has returned. From afar, flickering torches pierce through the olive leaves. The sound of stomping feet and clashing swords breaks the silence. Judas is coming with a hostile crowd. But traveler, do not fear. Jesus is not a hunted victim. He is the king voluntarily stepping out to protect his sheep. He goes to meet the pain, so that pain cannot touch the deepest part of your soul. Dear traveler, breathe very gently. The quiet space of the Garden of Gethsemane is suddenly torn apart by flickering torches and the sound of stomping feet. A crowd carrying swords and clubs is rushing in. This scene may remind you of times when your life is suddenly turned upside down by unannounced events, times when peace is invaded by the hostility of the world. But look, amidst the eye of that storm of chaos, Jesus stands there, not running away, not trembling, but steadfast, like a rock mountain. Leading that group is none other than Judas, the one who had eaten with, drunk with, and shared joys and sorrows with him. He approaches. A kiss, the most sacred symbol of intimacy and respect, now becomes a sign of betrayal. Greetings, Rabbi. Matthew 26:49. He speaks and kisses him. Is there any pain greater than being hurt by someone you trust? Perhaps tonight, your heart is also throbbing from the scars of past betrayal. But listen to Jesus' answer. He does not curse, does not scold. He looks deep into Judas's eyes, a gaze tinged with sadness, but still full of humanity. Do what you came for, friend. Matthew 26:50. Friend. He still calls him friend. This is the pinnacle of inner freedom. Jesus does not let the evil actions of others turn him into a bitter person. He refuses to drink the poison cup of hatred. This lesson is the antidote for your sleep. Do not carry resentment into sleep. Forgive, not because they deserve it, but because your soul deserves peace. Just as the crowd intends to rush in to arrest him, a supernatural event occurs, recorded by the Apostle John, to remind us of the supreme power of God, when he asks, "Who is it you want?" And they reply, "Jesus of Nazareth." He boldly declares, "I am he." John 18:5. Just as he says, "I am he," the entire group of soldiers and temple guards draw back and fall to the ground. Why is this detail important to you tonight? It proves that Jesus is not arrested as a weak victim. He allows them to arrest him. No one has power over him if he does not voluntarily surrender it. He lets himself be bound so that you may be unbound from the chains of sin. He accepts the loss of freedom so that you may find true freedom in the soul. This voluntary surrender is the most eloquent proof of love. You are being loved by one who has enough power to destroy enemies, but chooses to sacrifice himself to redeem them. However, the disciples still do not understand this depth. Peter, in a fit of agitation, wanting to protect the teacher, drew his sword and cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant. Violence meets violence. That is our common reaction when backed into a corner. But Jesus immediately intervenes. No more of this. Luke 22:51. He commands the violence to stop, and amidst the siege of enemies, he performs a final miracle before suffering the passion. He touches the servant's ear and heals him. Visualize that scene. He heals the one coming to arrest him. Even when the hands are about to be chained, those hands still dispense grace. This tells you, no circumstance, no matter how bad, can stop the flow of God's love. If he heals the enemy, then how thoroughly will he care for you, his beloved child? You are absolutely safe in those healing hands. After healing, Jesus turns to the crowd and sets a condition to protect those following him. If you are looking for me, then let these men go. John 18:8. In the most perilous moment, he does not worry for himself. He worries for the safety of the disciples. He stands as a shield, taking every blow so that you may be safe and sound. Tonight, Jesus is also standing before your door, saying to anxieties, sickness, and nightmares, "Let my child sleep well. Let everything fall upon me." Finally, Jesus turns back to speak to Peter. "Put your sword back in its place. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels?" Matthew 26:52-53. He reminds him that true strength lies not in swords and spears, but in obedience. He could call 12 legions of angels to rescue him immediately, but he did not do so. Because if he were rescued, who would save you? He chose to walk the path of passion because it is the only path leading to peace for you. The crowd rushes in to arrest him. The disciples who just vowed life and death now flee in panic. Jesus is left alone, bound, led away in the dark night. This loneliness of his is to compensate for your loneliness. He walks into the darkness alone so that you never have to walk alone again. Whenever you feel abandoned, remember the image of Jesus walking silently amidst the brutal torches, carrying a steadfast love for you. The group leads the Lord through the Kidron Valley, up the stone steps to the house of Caiaphas. The night is very late. The most unjust trial in history is about to take place. And there, another pain awaits him, not from the enemy, but from the closest disciple. But before the dawn breaks, the Lord's silence before the accusations will become the greatest epic of human dignity. Dear traveler, leave the cold, misty garden to follow Jesus into the inner courtyard of Caiaphas. The night is very late, but here torches still burn brightly, illuminating faces full of anger and calculation. A strange trial is taking place, a trial judging the innocent one at midnight, when justice is sound asleep. You will see a shocking contrast here. The accusers scream, rage, and find every false evidence against him. They are like the critical voices in your head voices that always scream that you are not good enough, that you have failed, that you deserve punishment. But look at Jesus. Amidst the storm of slander, the Bible records a concise yet powerful sentence. But Jesus remained silent. Matthew 26:63. He remained silent. Why did he not defend himself? Why did he not use his transcendent wisdom to break their arguments? Jesus' silence is a protection for you. He remained silent to accept judgment on your behalf. He did not need to prove his innocence, for he knew well who he was. How precious this lesson is for your sleep tonight. You do not need to stay awake all night to justify yourself before those who do not understand you. You do not need to fight every rumor or misunderstanding. Learn the holy silence of the Lord. Let the truth speak for itself in its own time. Peace comes when you stop arguing and start trusting in the righteous judge. Only when the high priest asked a decisive question, "Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God," did Jesus break the silence. He spoke the only necessary truth. "You have said so. From now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." Matthew 26:64. He affirmed his eternal kingship. Right when he was considered a death row inmate. No matter how bad the current situation is, his true position, and yours in him, remains at the right hand of the Mighty One. While Jesus was standing firm before the most powerful men, outside in the courtyard, another tragedy was unfolding with Peter. Peter was sitting warming himself by the fire with the servants. He was cold the cold of the night dew and the bone-chilling cold of fear. He wanted to be close to the Lord, but he was also afraid of death. This struggle is something we all understand. We want to live holily, but we also fear being mocked by the world. A servant girl looked at him and said, "You also were with Jesus of Galilee." Fear flared up, overwhelming even the solemn vows made a few hours earlier. Peter denied it flatly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Matthew 26:70. The first time, then the second time, and by the third time, he even swore an oath. "I do not know the man." Matthew 26:74. Just as the third denial ended, a rooster crowed, tearing through the quiet night. That sound was as sharp as a knife cutting into Peter's conscience. He remembered the teacher's prophecy, a feeling of total collapse. He had failed. He was a cowardly traitor. But traveler, do not stop at Peter's pain. Witness the most beautiful, most healing moment of tonight. Dr. Luke records a detail that other books do not have. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Luke 22:61. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. What kind of look was that? If it had been an angry look, Peter might have despaired like Judas. If it had been a contemptuous look, "I told you so," Peter might have run away forever. But no, it was the look of understanding love. That look said, "I know you are weak, Peter. I know you are afraid, but I still love you. I am enduring this judgment to pay the price for this very denial of yours." When you make a mistake, when you feel unworthy of a good sleep, visualize Jesus turning to look at you, not to accuse, but to say, "I see you, I understand you, and I forgive you." Peter ran outside and wept bitterly. Luke 22:62. Those tears were not the end, but the beginning of healing. They were tears of brokenness so that grace could pour in. Tonight, if you need to cry, just cry. Let the tears wash away the suppression. God treasures those tears of repentance more than any lavish offering. The trial ended as dawn broke. Jesus was sentenced to death. He was beaten, spat upon, and mocked. But in spirit, he had won. He had protected the disciples, even though they fled. He had kept his dignity intact before the enemy, and he had sown in Peter's heart the seed of forgiveness that would later turn him into a great apostle. The darkness of Act 3 is closing. Jesus accepts stepping onto the path of the cross, but he walks not as a loser, but as a king stepping onto the throne of mercy. He bears the punishment so you may receive peace. He endures the sleeplessness of this night so you may have a good sleep. All judgment has been poured upon his shoulders. There is no accusation left for you. The courtroom has closed. The noise has ceased. Only his love to the end remains. covering you. Relax your shoulders. Loosen your forehead. Every mistake today has been covered by the blood of the covenant. Be at peace, traveler. Tonight, the Lord keeps watch for you. Tomorrow, when dawn rises, we will witness the greatest victory. Act Phi P. The resurrection. But that is tomorrow's story. For now, peace, peace. Dear traveler, imagine the absolute silence of Saturday. It was the day when hope seemed to be buried deep in the cold earth. Perhaps in life, you too have experienced such Saturday's days when you feel every door is closed, every effort is hopeless, and a giant stone is weighing on your chest, making it hard to breathe every night. But the Bible does not stop at Saturday. While the night had not yet fully faded, at the crack of dawn on the first day of the week, a group of women, including Mary Magdalene, quietly walked toward the tomb. They carried spices, they carried love, and they carried despair. They went to fulfill the final duty to the deceased. In their minds at that moment, there was only one greatest anxiety, a question repeating painfully. Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? Mark 16:3. Is that question familiar to you? It is the voice of anxiety when you lie down in bed. Who will resolve this debt? Who will heal this illness? Who will untangle this relationship? We look at our limited strength and look at the giant stone of reality, and we feel helpless. That stone is too heavy, too large, and it blocks the path leading to our peace. But listen to this miracle, O weary soul. When the women arrived, they looked up and saw a sight that made their hearts skip a beat. The stone had already been rolled away. But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. Mark 16:4. A great earthquake had occurred. The angel of the Lord had descended and pushed back that heavy stone. The most important thing is, this happened before they arrived, while they were still unaware. This is a powerfully healing message for your sleep tonight. God does not wait for you to be strong enough to push the stone of your life yourself. He does it when you do not see. He works in the dark while you are sleeping to prepare a way out for you at dawn. The stone of anxiety that you fear, God already has a solution for it. He has moved it away so that the light of resurrection can pour in. You do not need to lie awake calculating how to move the stone anymore. The angel of deliverance has been sent for you. When entering the tomb, they did not find the body of Jesus. The emptiness of the tomb initially frightened them, but it was the greatest emptiness in history. The angel reassured them with a shocking declaration, a statement that would become the anchor of hope for billions of people through generations. Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen, just as he said. Matthew 28:5-6. He is not here. He has risen. Why does this help you sleep well? Because if death, the greatest enemy, the heaviest stone, the most fortified prison could not hold Jesus back, then is there any difficulty in your life that he cannot overcome? The empty tomb is proof that no dead end is eternal. Every pain, every failure, every loss is only temporary. Jesus walked through death to open a path of life. When you close your eyes tonight, visualize the tombs imprisoning your joy and hope being thrown open. Darkness no longer has power. Pay attention to the detail of the burial cloth folded up, recorded by the Gospel of John. A thief would not fold the cloth. A person fleeing in haste would not fold the cloth. That neatness speaks of an absolute peace and divine order. The resurrected Jesus did not rise in chaos, but in majestic calm. He wants to bring that order into your chaotic mind. He wants to neatly fold the cluttered thoughts that are disturbing your sleep. He says, "It is finished. I have won. Be at peace." The empty tomb event is not just a physical miracle. It is a complete shift in perception. It moves us from the state of mourning for what is lost to the state of wonder at what God is doing. The women came to anoint a corpse, but they left with a mission to proclaim the good news of life. Tonight, you may also be anointing your sorrows with tears, but God invites you to look up. The stone has rolled away. The prison door is open. The dawn is seeping in. Let holy wonder fill your chest instead of fear. Take a deep breath of the resurrection morning air and exhale all the remnants of the gloomy Saturday. The empty tomb is the first sign, but it is only the beginning. Emptiness needs to be filled with presence. An empty tomb without a dead body is good news, but a garden with the risen one is a reunion. And the first person blessed to meet the risen Lord was not a king or powerful apostles, but a woman who was once broken, weeping because she thought she had lost everything. Dear traveler, when Peter and John saw the empty tomb, they were amazed and returned home. But there was one who did not return. That was Mary Magdalene. She stood outside the tomb crying. This image is so similar to many of us. When the surrounding world keeps turning, when everyone seems to have accepted reality and moved on, we still stand there, stuck in the pain of loss. We linger by the graves of the past broken relationships, lost opportunities, and let tears fall. But precisely because she lingered, she received the first gift of the resurrection. Jesus often chooses to appear to the most broken hearts, those who need him most. Through the veil of tear-filled eyes, Mary saw a man standing there. She thought he was the gardener. This detail bears a beautiful symbolic meaning. Adam, the first human, sinned in a garden and fled from God. Now Jesus, the new Adam, appears in a garden to seek out humanity again. He is truly the great gardener of the soul, the one who comes to uproot the thorns of pain and sow life anew. The Lord asked her a gentle question, repeating the words of the angel. "Woman, why are you weeping? Who is it you are looking for?" John 20:15. The Lord certainly knew she was weeping. He certainly knew whom she was looking for. But he wanted her to say it. He wanted her to pour out her heart into words. Mary, in desperation, sobbed, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." John 20:15. She was ready to carry his body, even though she was just a frail woman. Love had made her strong, but grief had blinded her eyes. She was talking to the very one she was seeking without knowing it. Have you ever felt God was absent from your life? Have you ever screamed in the night, "Where is God? Why is he silent?" In reality, God is standing right in front of you, right beside your pillow. But because the tears of anxiety have blurred the eyes of faith, you mistake him for a stranger. Or you think these events are just life's coincidences, like meeting a gardener. You do not recognize he is present in your very difficulties. And then, The moment that changed the entire universe arrived. Jesus did not preach theology, nor did he perform thunderous miracles. He did the simplest thing. He called her name, Mary. John 20:16. Just one word, one name, but spoken by that familiar voice, the voice that had cast 7 demons out of her, the voice that had taught and comforted her. In a split second, the veil of mourning was torn apart. Sorrow turned into bursting joy. She turned and exclaimed, "Rabboni." Why is this detail important for your sleep tonight? Because the risen Jesus is not a strange deity or an abstract concept. He is the good shepherd who knows the name of each of his sheep. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. John 10:3. Tonight, amidst billions of people on earth, God knows your name. He does not call you, "Hey human," or "Hey sinner." He calls your own name. He knows your story, your specific pain, and your secret dream. When the Lord called Mary, he was reaffirming her identity. She was not the abandoned one. She was the one known by God. Close your eyes and try to listen in your spirit. God is calling your name. Let that soothing sound seep into your heart. When you are called by name by the Creator, you are no longer lonely. You belong to Him. His presence dispels the cold of solitude. This encounter was brief, but transformative. Jesus told her, "Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." John 20:17. Notice the change in the address. My Father and your Father. Before they were disciples, servants. Now, through the resurrection, they became brothers and God became their Father. My friend, tonight you do not go to sleep as a stranger in the inn of the universe. You are sleeping in your Father's house. The risen Jesus has opened that family door for you. Mary Magdalene ran back, no longer the weeping woman at the tomb, but the first messenger of the gospel. She exclaimed, "I have seen the Lord." John 20:18. Sorrow had been taken away. The burden had been lifted. Mary's story is a reminder that dawn always comes for those who persist in seeking. God can transform the weeping of the night into the rejoicing of the morning in just the single moment He calls your name. Tonight, let God be the gardener for your soul. Let Him prune the dry branches of sorrow, water the dry beds of hope. You are safe in His garden of grace, but not everyone possesses the sensitivity of Mary. There are others, carrying bitter disappointment in their hearts, trudging away from Jerusalem to head towards a distant countryside. They walk turning their backs on the empty tomb, carrying a cold heart. What will Jesus do with those who are fleeing from hope? He will not stand and wait. He will follow them, walking parallel with them on the dusty road like a mysterious companion. Dear traveler, the sun is gradually setting to the west, casting a withered yellow hue upon the dusty road leading from Jerusalem to Emmaus. On that road, about 7 miles long, 2 men are dragging their heavy feet. They are disciples of the Lord, but they were not present at the empty tomb this morning. They chose to leave. They turned their backs on the holy city, turned their backs on the promises, and turned their backs on the hope that had just flickered out. They were heading to Emmaus, an ordinary village, to return to an ordinary life, leaving behind the dream of a kingdom that had collapsed. Do you ever feel like them? Ever, after a major failure, after a prayer that seems unanswered, do you tell yourself, "It's over. Let's go home. There is nothing left to hope for"? That feeling of disillusionment is poison to the soul. It makes your sleep heavy and weary. They walked and talked, their tone full of pessimism and regret. And then, a stranger appeared and walked with them. The Bible records a strange detail. Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Luke 24:15-16. Jesus came. He did not appear in blinding glory to stop them. He came as an ordinary traveler, walking in the same rhythm with them, enduring the road dust with them. Why didn't they recognize him? Perhaps because tears, because disappointment had obscured their vision, or perhaps because the Lord intentionally hid himself. He wanted to listen to them first. He asked, "What are you discussing together as you walk along that makes you look so sad?" And Cleopas, one of the two, uttered the sentence containing the deepest sadness of humanity. "We had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel." Luke 24:21. We had hoped. This is the past tense. Hope once existed, but now it is gone. We had hoped to be healed. We had hoped to succeed. We had hoped the family would be happy. When you bring those unfinished, had hoped words to bed, they turn into a dull pain. But that companion did not let them sink in the quagmire of complaint. He began to speak, not empty words of comfort, but words that unlock the mind. He led them through the scriptures, from Moses to the prophets, to show them a completely new perspective on pain. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? Luke 24:26. He was redrawing the map of their lives. He showed them that the failures, the suffering, the death they had just witnessed were not accidents, were not the end. They were the necessary path leading to glory. This explanation soothes your troubled mind. The difficulties you are facing tonight are not signs that God has abandoned you, but may be the Emmaus road necessary to lead you to a more glorious maturity. When they neared the village of Emmaus, it was fully dark. The stranger acted as if he were going farther. This was the decisive moment. The two disciples, though they had not yet recognized him, had their souls attracted by the peace radiating from this man. They urged him to stay with a most beautiful invitation, a perfect prayer for us whenever night falls. Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over. Luke 24:29. Traveler, tonight, borrow the words of those two disciples to whisper to the Lord. Lord, the day is over, my strength is gone, darkness is covering. Please stay with me. Do not go on. Enter the house of my heart and rest here. God never refuses such a sincere invitation. He went in and sat at the table with them. And at that simple table, the script of the Last Supper was reenacted. He took bread, gave thanks, broken it, and gave it to them. That familiar gesture, those hands with nail marks. In a split second, the veil covering their eyes fell. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Luke 24:31. He disappeared, but not disappeared to leave, but disappeared because he was already in them. He no longer needed to be present in flesh and blood, for their faith had been restored. They looked at each other, and instead of the gloomy sadness of the late afternoon, they now exclaimed, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" Luke 24:32. Burning hearts. The fire. That is what the resurrection brings. From the ashes of disappointment, a warm, brilliant fire flared up in the chest. This feeling of burning hearts is the greatest comfort. It is the feeling of being understood, enlightened, and loved. When you go to sleep tonight, check your heart. If it is cold with anxiety, invite Jesus to break the bread of His word for you. Let Him warm your heart with His mysterious presence. The story ends with an action full of energy. Although it was dark, although the road was dangerous, the two disciples immediately got up and returned to Jerusalem. They could not keep this good news to themselves. They were no longer tired. The resurrection had recreated their strength. They returned to do what? To tell their brothers that the Lord has truly risen. The Emmaus story reminds you that Jesus is the master of turning fleeings into homecomings. He enters your disappointment to turn it into hope. He is the patient companion, ready to walk miles just to explain to you how much you are loved. While the two Emmaus disciples were rushing back to Jerusalem with burning hearts in the holy city, the remaining apostles were huddled in a room with locked doors. They feared the Jews. An atmosphere of tension and doubt prevailed. And among them, there was one who still did not believe. A man who needed more than a warm heart. He needed a proof that could be touched by hand. That was Thomas. What will Jesus do with that rational doubt? Will He scold? Or will He bring a peace that surpasses all understanding? Dear traveler, it was late on that first Sunday. While the two disciples from Emmaus were rushing back with the good news of burning hearts in Jerusalem, the remaining 10 disciples were huddled in an upper room. The Bible records a very realistic detail. The doors were locked for fear of the Jewish leaders. John 20:19. That locked room is the image of your mind when anxious. When afraid, we tend to close our hearts. We build defensive walls. We lock our emotions tight. We hide in a safe shell for fear of being hurt, judged, or threatened from the outside. You lie on your bed, but your mind is like a besieged fortress, tense and suffocating. But watch what happens. Jesus came. He did not knock. He did not break the door. He did not climb through the window. He simply appeared and stood among them. The resurrection power of Jesus is not limited by matter. No door, whether of solid oak or the most rigid psychological door, can stop Him from entering your life. Tonight, even if you are locking your heart tight in sadness or isolation, God can still enter as gently as a breath and stand right in the midst of your anxieties. The first sentence He spoke was not a reproach. Why did you run away? Why did you not believe? No. He said, peace be with you. Shalom Aleichem, John 20:19. And He repeated it once more. Why peace? Because that was what they lacked most. That is also what you need most to enter sleep. This peace, shalom, is not just the absence of war, but wholeness, the healing of broken pieces. When Jesus said peace, He was not just offering a social greeting, but He was bestowing that peace as a living entity into the space of the room. He showed them His hands inside, the scars. Why did the risen Lord keep the scars? Surely He could have had a perfect, flawless body. He kept the scars to tell you that past pain is not erased, but transformed into glory. His scars are proof that He understands your pain. He is not a God estranged from suffering. Seeing the scars, the disciples were overjoyed. Fear vanished. But that night, there was one person absent. That was Thomas, also known as Didymus. When Thomas returned and heard the brothers recount, "We have seen the Lord," he shook his head. Thomas represents the rational, practical, and skeptical human in each of us. He could not believe based solely on the emotions of others. He needed proof. He declared a harsh condition. Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. John 20:25. Many call him Doubting Thomas, but perhaps we should call him Honest Thomas. He did not pretend to believe to fit in with the crowd. He was honest about his confusion, and Jesus cherishes that honesty. What did God do? He waited. 1 day, 2 days, until 8 days later. 8 days is a long time for Thomas to live in torment. The brothers were happy while he was lost. But Jesus returned for Thomas alone. Remember this well. If you are the only one still doubting, God will still return just to find you. He does not abandon the skeptic. 8 days later, the doors were still locked. Fear was still there. The Lord appeared again and said, "Peace be with you." Then he turned straight to Thomas. He did not scold him. He met his challenge exactly. Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. John 20:27. Jesus invited Thomas to touch his pain. This is the ultimate humility of God. He is willing to let humans examine him. He understands that sometimes our intellect needs a fulcrum for faith to take flight. And Thomas, when facing that great understanding and tolerance, needed to touch no more, or touched in trembling. He fell down and uttered the highest confession of faith in the entire Bible, "My Lord and my God." John 20:28. From teacher, rabbi, it shifted to God. Doubt became the launch pad for the most steadfast faith. Thomas found peace not because he understood everything, but because he met the one who knows everything. Finally, Jesus spoke a sentence reserved specifically for you, the one listening to these lines late at night, the one who has never seen the Lord's face in flesh and blood. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. John 20:29. That is the final beatitude. You are blessed. The fact that you lie here, listening about him and opening your heart to him, even without seeing him, is a miracle. Your faith is more precious than gold. Let this blessing lull you to sleep. You do not need to see to believe. The peace spreading in your heart is the clearest proof of his presence. The door of the heart has been opened. Doubt has been resolved. Your mind can now rest in the certainty of the truth. The Lord is my God. B. But the flow of resurrection life cannot stagnate in a locked room. It must flow out. It must become a river bringing healing to the ends of the earth. And before ascending to heaven, Jesus left a command, not a burden, but a promise of eternal companionship to ensure that you will never, ever have to be lonely again. Dear traveler, after dispelling Thomas's doubts and bestowing peace upon the minds of the disciples, Jesus led them and us away from the confining walls of Jerusalem. He took us to a mountain in Galilee. Imagine yourself standing there, breathing in the fresh, liberating air of the high mountain peak. The wind blows freely, and the deep blue sky stretches infinitely. All the suffocation and confinement of the past days have vanished. Here, where heaven and earth meet, Jesus prepares to issue the final declaration, a statement that will reshape the entire meaning of your life and your sleep. Before he ascended to heaven, he did not leave behind a testament of assets, nor a complex set of laws. He left behind power and presence. He said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." Matthew 28:18. Let this powerful statement reassure you. The one you trust, the one to whom you entrust your soul tonight, holds all authority. He holds power over the celestial bodies operating in the universe. He holds power over human history. And most importantly, He holds power over the smallest details of your life: health, work, finances, and even tonight's dreams. If the one holding that supreme power is protecting you, what dark force, what worldly anxiety is strong enough to harm you? You can sleep well, for the King of the universe is awake to reign. Next, He gave the disciples a mission, often called the Great Commission. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Matthew 28:19. You might think, Lord, I am tired. I just want to sleep. Why do you tell me to work? But look deeper. This command is not a workload burden pressing on your shoulders. It is an affirmation of value. God trusts you. He invites you to become a partner in His great plan. Your life is not meaningless. You do not just live to pay bills and die. You are part of the flow of love spreading throughout the world. Awareness of purpose is the best sedative. When you know you live with a purpose, you will no longer fear emptiness. And then, as if to seal all that has happened from the manger in Bethlehem to the bloody cross, from the empty tomb to the mountain of glory, Jesus grants us the eternal anchor, the most beautiful promise in the Bible. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. I am with you always. Let us analyze every word of this promise so it soaks into every tense cell of your brain. Surely, it is not perhaps, not hopefully, but an absolute guarantee. There is no doubt here at all. Always, not just when you are obedient, not just when you go to church, not just when you succeed, but always. In beautiful sunny days and in stormy nights, when you are strongest and when you are weakest, like right now. He is with you every second, every minute, every breath, to the very end of the age. His love has no expiration date. It extends throughout time, beyond death, into eternity. This is the name Emmanuel, God with us fully realized. You are never alone. Loneliness is just a deceptive feeling of emotion, while God's presence is a reality of faith. When you turn off the lights, when the room sinks into darkness, whisper, God is here. He is with me. That presence is warmer than any blanket, safer than any lock. After giving that promise, Jesus was taken up to heaven. But notice His final gesture, recorded by the Gospel of Luke. When He had led them out to the vicinity of Bethany, He lifted up His hands and blessed them. While He was blessing them, He left them and was taken up into heaven. Luke 24:50-51. He departed in the posture of raising His hands to bless. That is the final image I want you to keep in your mind tonight. Jesus is not looking down at you with a scrutinizing gaze or a critical finger. He is raising His nail-marked hands to cover and bless you. He blesses your sleep, your family, and your tomorrow. Under the shadow of those wings of blessing, no nightmare dares to approach, and He does not leave us as orphans. He promised to send the Spirit, the Comforter, to dwell in our hearts. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. Acts 1:8. The Holy Spirit is the breath of peace within you. He is the gentle whisper lulling you to sleep every night. He transforms your soul into the temple of God. Dear traveler, the fire in the fireplace has faded, leaving only warm, glowing embers. We have walked a very long road together tonight. We saw him born in a manger to share in our poverty. We heard him preach on the mountain to liberate us from anxiety. We saw him walk on water to calm the storm of the heart. We saw him die on the cross to bear all sin and suffering. And finally, we saw him rise again, rolling away the stone blocking the tomb and opening the path of eternal hope. All those things he did for you, so that tonight you no longer have to carry any burden. Every debt has been paid. Every enemy has been defeated. Every future has been secured. Now relax your body completely. Inhale the peace of the risen one. Exhale every worry of this temporary world. You are lying in the blessing arms of the one who says, I am with you always. Sleep, Father's beloved child. Sleep in victory. Sleep in peace. Sleep well.